Thanks for tuning in. You are watching Notepad. I'm your host, Ibrahim Sani. We have seen the Google Temasek Bain and Company report called e-Conomy Southeast Asia report that has been published for a few years now. And of course, very recently they published the 2020 report. The findings are, of course, interesting to be discussed. Joining us on the line right now is Marc Woo of Google. He's the head of Google Malaysia. Marc, how are you?
I'm great. I'm keeping safe. I hope you all are keeping safe yourselves as well.
But that's the idea, right? I mean, you don't need a Bain report to tell all of us that it's changed. The kind of a digital adoption is here to stay. And the odd part is that some of us were already on this revolution. I remember doing Zoom meetings, but that was, I mean, prior to the pandemic, of course. But that was like an off and on kind of thing. Now it's when I say I want to have a meeting with a person, it's generally understood that it will be some form of meeting via Google Meets or any of the channels like Skype or Zoom. But this is how it is. And that's the point that I want to raise in the e-Conomy Southeast Asia report. There's a lot of things that were raised in the report, but before we jump into any of it, I just want to ask you, first of all, how was the business of Google for 2020, and how does it translate to producing these kind of reports?
So, as I was reflecting on how 2020 played out or played a part in our journey so far, you mentioned things are different, but I don't think the situation that we're currently in that ate up most part of 2020 changed our course, right? It only served to accentuate and accelerate a multitude of critical aspects. So if you think about digitization for businesses, you think about adoption of e-commerce, food delivery, so on and so forth. It's been around for the longest time, right? But this whole pandemic sort of like accelerated the adoption in Malaysia. And if I look at Malaysia, the consumer behavior, the flight to digital is happening faster and faster than ever before. Past 12 months, for example, 1 in 3 digital service consumers are new in Malaysia. So think about the folks who are buying things online now for the first time, food delivery becoming a norm, as well as paying for entertainment online, right? SVODs and what have you. E-commerce is also a new norm. We like to say it's not surprising, and prior to the crisis, I'm known to make this statement. I said that countries or economies along the equator will not achieve e-commerce GMV or e-commerce sales penetration above 20%, because malls dominate, right? But after 2020, I kind of stand corrected. So I need to, alter my statement as well. But e-commerce Malaysia grew very, very fast, 87% year over year. It's the highest growth in Southeast Asia. Quite proud of that. And I think lastly, when it comes to the most critical enabler for us to really fully reap the digitization opportunity, talent remains the most critical aspect. A digitally ready workforce remains the most critical aspect. We believe in teaching to fish as opposed to providing the fish. So therefore, we're invested in training and upskilling in Malaysia. Mahir Digital Bersama Google remains our flagship program. We will continue to invest in it this year. We've trained over 12,000 people, mainly professionals in the workforce, as well as SME employees last year. So we're aiming to continue on this journey as well.
And because of that, it's nice to have the continuation of this e-Conomy report, right? And the thing about working with such reports is that sometimes it's not tracking through time, therefore you don't see the changes over time. But this report is in its 5th year running. And of course, Bain came in only in 2019, but that still doesn't change the fact that you guys were tracking this from 2016, 2017. So let's talk about some of the headline ideas that you guys unearthed in the report for 2020.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, so there are 3 headlines. One is 1 in 3 digital service consumers are new in Malaysia, right? And it's we believe that it's not just the urban folks who are coming online and making commerce transactions more. It's people from the outside of the urban centers, right? People in Kelantan, Terengganu, Sabah, Sarawak, they are coming online, and not just coming online to consume the free content, but coming online to perform like commerce transactions, e-commerce, buying stuff online, paying for entertainment online, as what like I mentioned earlier on, as well as food delivery. So you can't discount the app. So that's number one. That's a very, very positive sign for us. And like I mentioned, e-commerce grew close to 90% year over year, highest in Southeast Asia. Not surprising, right? We've got a good infrastructure set up in Malaysia. We have a couple of strong marketplaces together with brands who are, more and more invested in their own e-commerce storefront. And we're seeing a proliferation of Malaysians tuning into, like, whether it's a website on the desktops or apps on their mobile phones to make daily purchases. And then lastly, like I mentioned, talent remains super critical. We believe in providing that digital upskilling capability to the existing workforce to remain relevant for the next 10 years. One needs to go through such knowledge consumption, as well as getting the right skill sets in place, as IR 4.0 hit us hard as we move into this new digital powered normalcy for the workforce to deliver that that relevant skill set, relevant economic contribution, right, to power Malaysia forward.
The report focuses on 5 key items: commerce, transport, online media, online travel, financial services. And it's natural for you guys to insert 2 new ideas here: health tech and, of course, ed tech or education technology. And because of the persistent need for us to solve these 2 elements, the 2 new ones, health tech and education tech, do you feel that this would be here to stay even when the pandemic is resolved, whenever it is done? Do you feel that education and health is going to be taken into a different tangent altogether post-pandemic?
So let me touch upon education. So I'm extremely passionate about education in Malaysia for a host of reasons. The new normalcy impacts not just the economy, like we spoke about, right? I mean, it's very positive and all, but I think the future of our the next generation, our children, whose current schooling experience is right now being impacted. I think for a lot of them, they are finding new ways, whether it's schools, the government, as well as families at home, right? Finding new ways to continue that learning. So we should totally invest in driving the continued adoption as well as usage of a more hybrid technology in education. I spoke about this earlier on in the panel discussion. I don't think we'll move fully to 100% online system, but a hybrid solution is going to be the path forward. And what I mean by hybrid solution is, if let's say for some reason a student can't go to school, there is still that opportunity for that person through internet connectivity as well as devices to tune into education, right? Or even if they are in schools in the future, there is that devices as well as the right software in place for them to absorb learning as well as to engage with their educators and their fellow students, right, in a more collaborative and meaningful way. So we're partnered with Ministry of Education. We partnered with them across multiple years to roll out a national level G Suite for education and classroom nationwide, right? So the way I see it is, it will help in a multitude of ways going forward. Number one, flexibility and adaptability. The tools or mediums that are available to students can tailor to a more dynamic curriculum. So if MOE introduces a new math syllabus, the tools can be adapted accordingly very, very fast to ensure highest engagement and learning levels. Number two is affordability. So it's in our principle not to charge for this enterprise-grade software for schools and learning institutions. The nationwide rollout is actually free of charge. We want to ensure that at the same time, there is high accessibility for all students and teachers to get access to G Suite for Education. And we've collaborated with various education partners, right, to provide professional development and programs in Malaysia. And the last one I would say is the ability to learn on demand. Right now, everything's on demand. Everything's on your fingertips. Information, entertainment, even like what I mentioned just now, purchases of a product is all on your fingertips. If you do it in less than a minute. Learning shouldn't be different. And our YouTube strategy in Malaysia has allowed for a host of local educators to flourish, right, in light of this pandemic. ChikguTube, for example, is almost like a crowdsourced platform on YouTube where teachers who are committed and active online create educational videos targeting all segments of Malaysian students. So I would say that's on education.
The idea that you're talking about also touches on the broad concept of asymmetrical learning. And of course, while we understand that there's a lot of tools right now, most of us are familiar with already ChikguTube, for instance, and all the other stuff that is available from Google. But what I want to touch on is on moving forward on education per se. We'll touch on the health tech. We haven't touched on that yet, but asymmetrical learning. Things like the way we learn stuff on masterclass.com, something like that. Do you feel that this is an opportunity for entrepreneurs to think about building a solution for this and get on the Google platform in the near term?
I think so. With the internet, if I look back at 10, 20 years, platform has allowed like anybody to express their talent, has allowed creators to really flourish in reaching a worldwide audience, as well as making money at the same time. And I think education is no different. So if you look at like YouTube, for example, ChikguTube is one example that I spoke about. But you think about like the host of like yoga videos, staying fit at home, recipes, so on and so forth. Yes, people are sharing those videos, but a lot of Malaysians now are taking it really, really seriously. When I say seriously, it means that there is a professional setup, and they're spending a lot of time with pre and post editing, as well as finding the right commercial partner to monetize even more. So right now, and because of the quality content and the locally relevant content that they put on YouTube in Malaysia, people are tuning in, people are subscribing. So just for context, gold button channels on YouTube. Gold button means that you have your channel has more than 1 million subscribers, and that's a huge thing, right? Because you have 1 million followers, and they are viewing multiple times. We have close to 60 of them in Malaysia. Close to 60 channels in YouTube Malaysia that has over 1 million subs each, right? It cuts across entertainment, it cuts across like education for sure. So I feel that there is more democratization of the way education or information is being delivered in a more systemic manner through like these online platforms like YouTube.
Let's talk now on health technology or health tech. Where do you see things stand right now versus what do you think is going to happen in the near term?
Ibrahim, I can't really comment on health tech because I'm not really an expert here. So I may need to pass on this question.
All right, let's move on to other items within the report then. In the report, it shows significantly that the growth of people getting online is going to be substantial. The report says 260 million of total internet users will be in Southeast Asia in 2015, 360 million by 2019, and of course in 2020, 400 million. And the projection here is going to be far, far greater as more, to use your own terms here, democratization of information is being done across Southeast Asia. With this, do you believe that the advent of platforms, the way Google has approached it, will be even more important. Doesn't matter whether or not it's education or health tech or what. Just using platforms is going to be a serious concern, not serious concern, it's going to be a huge boost for the internet users in Southeast Asia.
Can I clarify, Ibrahim? When you say platforms, what do you mean?
I mean, YouTube or all the other stuff like Google Classrooms, those kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think for sure, yes. But ultimately, you got to think about how these platforms first came about, right? And it's not just like a YouTube and search. I mean, you have the likes of Grab, you have the likes of like Netflix as well. It comes about by solving consumer problems in that they provided a more on-demand, cheaper, fast to access form of entertainment information utility, right? So I think the advent of more platforms, platforms that originate from this region, is going to be more and more. Gurkhan, the CEO of Maxis, early on in the panel discussion, spoke about the limitless possibility that 5G will bring. I 100% concur with him, because with low latency, increased speed, higher bandwidth connectivity, especially with businesses, right? You never know what's going to come up next, right? Whether it's businesses coming up with business solutions that we've never seen before, or new innovators like the next Grab in this region. So the consumption, I think, will only increase. But what this means is, innovation going forward is going to be even more exponential.
For the viewers that kind of missed out just now, I didn't intro in what happened earlier today, which is of course the Google Breakfast series entitled Peering into Malaysia's Digital Future. Google hosted it, and a host of CEOs were there, including the Maxis CEO, Grab CEO, Picha Eats CEO, and Sarina of MDAC. And yes, Mark, I understand that the item that Gokhan was talking about, the advent of 5G, may bring about even new technologies that we can't even think about today. The solutions and the kind of products that will be brought about when 5G is fully rolled out in the country is going to be tremendous. And because of that, this does bring about that whole notion of what can we expect in the near term when it comes to the digital future of Malaysia. When we peer into our own digital future, what does it look like, you think?
Ibrahim,
Let's go into the
I don't have.
Nostradamus
Oh
mode
my
right
God.
now.
I don't have a crystal ball. At Google, we say that, in powers above, we trust. Everyone else bring data or opinions, right? And the data that we tend to look at is very backwards thinking, but sometimes we make some projection based on data as well. But just to answer your question, I'm not gonna steer away from it. If you look at, let's zoom into a couple of like industries, right? Agriculture. Agriculture has been like going through multiple revolutions, and it went from like pure manual to like machinery, and then from machinery to like more climate friendly kind of like agriculture approach. You see like in Japan, for example, there is now more adoption of the Internet of Things, right? To monitor the health of the soil, to monitor like the humidity within the greenhouse, all that is being churned into like a one central brain. And there was a case where a curry or a cucumber farmer in Japan, they used a neural, well, AI machine learning neural networks to help them sort out like the cucumbers, right, in a more efficient manner. So you see more use cases like this. I wouldn't say that it will completely transform the industry, but we will see a gradual adoption that is very plug and play, if you will, right? And 5G with more accessibility to like tech solutions, you see more of those adoption as well. Manufacturing, we spoke about manufacturing at large. And normally the conversation tends to be about, oh, am I going to lose my job because of like robotics? Am I going to lose my job because of like, AI? I think the short answer is no, because, we've seen like population growth over decades, over like centuries. We've seen like tech revolution multiple times, and yet employability still remains fairly consistent, right? But I would say that there's going to be more automation for sure. Cloud is going to be used more and more. We see a huge upside in cloud. In fact, yesterday we announced in our quarterly earnings, our cloud growth has been north of 40%. So that's a good sign that businesses are adopting our cloud solutions. And then lastly, I would say the adaptability of businesses, small and big, is going to be super critical. Them having a challenge the norm mindset and not recreating the wheel, but leveraging on whatever solutions as a service is going to be critical for them to innovate and come up with something that is more efficient and more productive for their business.
We'll go for a short break. When we come back, we'll talk more with Marc of Google. We'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back. This is Notepad. I'm your host, Ibrahim Sani. On the line right now is Marc Woo, or the MD of Google Malaysia. Marc was among the first Malaysians to be hired by Google when it started operations here in Malaysia back in 2011. And of course, Marc, a veteran of Google for 9 years, kind of understands what it takes for the company to move forward, i.e. Google to move forward in this part of the region. But of course, more importantly, because he is Malaysian, he understands the contextualized issues and challenges and perhaps some of the possibilities that we can enhance on and perhaps capitalize in order for us to make it better for the society that we operate in. So joining us is Marc. Marc, I want to touch on an issue that is going to be a big deal for us. Of course, this means this is the challenges that lie ahead when it comes to Malaysia. One of the bigger challenges that we need to deal with is, of course, economic inequality. People who are a little bit better off than others tend to be quicker in terms of digital adoption, and those that are not tend to lag behind. And we try our best to close that gap as much as possible. Google has worked closely with the MOE, for instance, to close that gap further. But do you think that this kind of economic inequality that exists in Malaysia is going to be a real challenge for us to solve in order for us to move the society forward to embrace digital adoption even faster or quicker?
The way I look at it is the other way around, Ibrahim. I think digital and the pervasiveness of digital in Malaysia would actually help address that gap. And what I mean by that is, the accessibility is becoming cheaper and cheaper, right? The coverage is increasing, and MCMC will be proud together with the telcos as well. And I feel that, as we also build our products, we need to think about diversity. We need to think about inclusivity, right? So search, for example, is not just in English, but it's also in Bahasa, it's in Mandarin, it's in Tamil, right? So we do think about the various contexts as well as serving 100% of our users and not leaving anyone behind. So that's one. I think number two also it's allowing all segments of the economic world, right? Whether it's in Malaysia or outside of Malaysia, to explore even more opportunities. So we know about the benefits of digital, being able to cross borders and all, but if you think about the micro SMEs who previously couldn't reach more audience, now they can, right? So if let's say someone is from their home, they cook nasi lemak, they sell it early in the morning, they can now tap on platforms to help them deliver, to help them get orders and deliver their food. They can use our platforms on Google Ads, for example, to in a very cost-efficient manner, reach out to their relevant customers in selling the products that they come up with. So I would say the advent of digital and the importance that the government is placing on accessibility of digital and digital as a utility will actually help bridge that gap.
Fantastic. We are nearing the end of our conversation. Before we end, any final ideas that you want to share with us regarding the digital future of Malaysia?
Digital future. I have one actually, Ibrahim, and this is very close to my heart. It's top of mind at the moment. It's very much regarding the situation that we're in. We understand the importance of digital. I know people, the workforce, as well as businesses, we're all thinking about like pivoting and transforming, whilst at the same time, we're being restricted, right, by the economic, well, by the health crisis. It's important for us to always be learning and growing, for sure. Start with yourself. Everything else will follow. But simultaneously, what's even more critical now is the focus on well-being, pacing yourself, the focus on like equality, diversity, as well as inclusion. Essentially, coming up with uh, a mindset that leaves no one behind, but at the same time allows for sustainability, right? Uh, Admittedly, all of us are still on that journey. Having a healthy and diverse setup, team, or an organization is super critical. Having a team that is highly responsible of their deliverables while maintaining a balanced lifestyle, and one that is operating under a psychological safe environment, I feel will be non-negotiable going forward. So it's not just the economic progress and the digital adoption, but also the change in the work culture that we need to adopt.
What a great way to end, Marc. That was Marc Woo, the Managing Director of Google Malaysia. If you've missed any part of this interview, and pun intended, you can Google Astro AWANI, Google Malaysia, and hopefully the best result possibly can come up from that search for you. Until then, thanks very much for watching, and goodbye.